Welcome to the PrimeSpan Podcast, where we talk about aging, mental health, and living well in the years that matters the most. Each week, we cut through the noise to focus on what actually helps you feel clearer, steadier, and more in control as you age. If you're navigating the second half of life or thinking ahead, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
When people think about aging well, they usually think about big changes, big decisions, big health moves, big turning point. But what often get overlooked is something much simpler. The small things, the daily choices, the habits that either build you up or slowly break you down over time. And the truth is, most people don't struggle because they don't know what to do. They struggle because they can't make it stick. Today's conversation is about that. I'm joined by Coach Lori Lupo, a social worker with over 25 years of experience helping people navigate life through trauma and change, who now focuses on helping adults build small, intentional habits that actually last. And of course, I'm also joined by Ray, one of our podcast hosts. Lori, we're so glad that you're here today. Welcome to PrimeSpan Podcasts. Before we start with a lot of our questions, I'm sure our listeners are excited to get to know you. Before everything, we want to know what led you into social work and what drew you into working with people in this way.
So thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and excited to be working with PrimeSpan. I think like most people in a service profession, what brought me to social work is really helping others. I think it started when I was young, in high school and even elementary school. You know, you're that friend that everybody comes to and asks questions or asks for advice. And I really enjoyed helping people navigate through that. So I think that's really what got me into the field. And I really do enjoy it and really enjoy helping people and empowering people. I think, more than just helping them, you're really empowering them to make choices. Better choices.
Now, you've been around doing this for 25 years. What made it meaningful enough to stay in for that long?
There has to be meaning to it because, I've been in social work. I'm in, I think, one of the more difficult avenues of social work. So the last 25 years, I've worked in child protection. And so in child protection, we really do see a lot of trauma and life transitions and working with people through times of difficulty. So there really does have to be a lot of benefit to it. So really seeing people change. My very early career was not in child protective services. It was in an in-home therapy program. And I remember liking the most chaotic families. They were my favorite to work with because they came to you at such a pivotal moment. And if you could just bring them one small light or one momentum of change, it made such a significant difference for them. And they were always very appreciative of that. And I have had a lot of, appreciation in child protective services as well. I've had families that have thanked me for my work with them because if it wasn't for our involvement, they wouldn't have gotten sober or, they wouldn't have improved their parenting in a way that was meaningful for their children.
There's a lot of depth in this. There's a lot of depth in your experience, Lori, but you've worked with individuals with trauma. What has that taught you about people for the most part? What patterns do you see in how people handle stress or change, especially when it comes to the traumatic experiences?
So I think the most important thing to remember is that everybody has a story.
Mhm.
And their own stories come from their lived experiences, and everybody's lived experiences are unique to them. So it's really important to listen to the families that we're working with, listen to people. What is it from their life that got them to where they are now? And we have to remember, we only see a small glimpse of that.
Mm.
There's so much below the surface that they don't share with you, that you have to always remember and keep in the back of your mind that they give us kind of pieces of information that they think is impactful for us, but there's so much more. And most people really do just want to be understood and validated.
And you're the most sounds like that small window that they're giving you, that non-judgmental aspect is quite important. But I'm curious, I'm sure you've also seen people that when you're trying to help them, there's things that gets into their way of making changes. What are the things that you typically see that stops them from making changes, even with a lot of the support, a lot of the help that people typically will provide?
I think a lot of people get stuck because they don't have enough support, or sometimes any support. I think our support network is really important, and they can really encourage us to be in a better place. So I think that's something that we see commonly. I think another way people get stuck is they just fall into old habits. And a lot of these are habits that are rooted in their childhood. So they can get stuck there. And a lot of times they have the awareness of the patterns, but it's breaking those patterns that's really hard. So sometimes it's education, giving them the education about the habits or the patterns. Sometimes it's extra support. Sometimes it's resources, outside resources. We have formal and informal support. So our family and friends would be our informal supports, and then formal supports can be programs or therapy or services in the community that can help you.
I have a lot of questions, but I want to make sure, Ray, I'll give you a chance to ask Coach Lori here questions.
Yeah, thank you. As you were talking about supporting people through these old habits, how do you help someone, or how have you helped someone stay consistent with it? It sounds like you are kind of one of those grounding pillars to help someone. And how do you help someone with that consistency? What are things that you're saying to them to be that supportive person? Maybe you're the one person that will help them make that change.
So thank you for noticing my grounding. I've heard that a lot in my experience, that I'm really level-headed or grounded or calm. So I do think that that's one of the strengths that I bring to this. But really the best thing to do is make a plan and write it down. That's one of the best ways to help people get through those habits and try to develop better habits is really writing it down. There's a lot of different ways people can journal, and that can bring insight into their habits. But really that plan, that hard plan on a piece of paper that is helping guide them to the changes that they want to make is really important. Probably the most important aspect of it. I think a lot of times we say you can't change what you're not tracking.
That's such a simple way of tracking your progress. We all have the capability of doing that, but I think having someone to guide you and say, hey, let's write it down and set a plan, it's so powerful, but it's so simple.
And we do a lot of tracking and adjusting. So if we're meeting with families weekly or monthly, we're constantly going back to that plan. What worked? What didn't work? Let's get rid of what didn't work, and let's keep what did work, and let's build on that.
Coach, I have a follow-up question on this. As Ray is asking, where do you think people tend to get stuck when they're trying to improve their health?
So I think for health, right now, there's too much information. And I think people get stuck in what's right and what's wrong. Should I be drinking coffee? Should I be drinking eggs? It depends what week it is, about what information you're hearing, about how do you know what to do. If I eat too many eggs, my cholesterol is going to go up. And that's not necessarily true. And I think people get stuck in that. And I want them to know to listen to their body, because we're all unique and we all bring something, and so I think that's something to remember, is that our bodies are unique and how our bodies respond. So we're the what's the word I'm looking for? We're the experts for ourselves. And I think that's one of the things that I do with people, is they need to be driving the decisions, and they need to understand that they're the expert of themselves. They know themselves better than anybody else. So I think, too much information right now is definitely overwhelming for people. You can go on their internet and you could find, good things about vegetables and bad things about vegetables, good things about coffee and bad things about coffee. But I think the other place they get stuck is just not understanding what's in our food. I could go down a rabbit hole about our food industry. But I think a lot of people just don't know what's in their food. So a lot of times when people ask me, what's like something that where can they start? I tell them to just read labels, just learn what you're putting in your body.
There's so much truth to what you just said about information overload, because that's, especially in today's world, right? We're not lacking information anymore. The problem is the biggest problem is how do you decipher the correct information and who's saying the right information? Because sometimes the people talking about the information out there is, as we call it, like, is clickbait, and or just for the rankings on their socials. But and some of them are true, but a lot of it is because of trying to clickbait you, and it's meant for entertainment, and it's trendy. It's becoming it. So people, I like it what you said here. Sometimes depending on depending on the week. It's so true. The food pyramid example we talked about, the protein. Next thing you know, a different protein, plant protein, suddenly is what you need to is being recommended. While it's there's conflicting information that's being put out there on the recommendations. I have a curiosity. What made you shift your focus towards helping people early in life, especially working with the younger generation? When you started your career, what was the drive towards working with the younger population?
For me, I came from a really stable household. And so maybe that's where some of my groundedness comes in. And it was something that I wanted to be able to share with others and be able to help others in that way.
It's coming from sharing what you experience in life.
Yes.
And what do you think people not realize early enough about? Now you're shifting towards the elderly population, Coach Lori. I'm curious, what made you do the switch? What triggered this? Because it's polar opposite, and I'm curious what is causing you to do that drive. Where's that passion coming from?
So I think health and wellness is still one of those service fields, and I think that has always been at my core. And then health and wellness has always been important to me ever since I was a kid. I was a youth athlete, and so exercise and physical activity was always important to me my whole life. I've incorporated it into my lifestyle. But why I'm making that pivot now, I think as I'm aging, I'm seeing how important those pillars of health are. I see it in myself. I see it within my family. I have some family members who have had some major medical experiences that has changed. My husband had a heart attack very young, and it really encouraged me to focus on our health and wellness, even though I thought I was doing really well, or our family was doing really well. But it really encouraged me to dial in and look at the impact of exercise and nutrition and sleep and stress, and how that impacts our wellness. So I think that's where the pivot is coming from my lived experiences within my own family and even some of my extended family. both my parents and my in-laws are both still alive, and I'm seeing them age, and see some of the struggles that they go through. And it's important that we set aside that daily investment for ourselves.
I think as a coach, as a provider, it really is very important that you live a life of an example. I'm curious, what does that look like day to day for you? If you're able to share a routine, a lifestyle routine to our listeners, I'm especially for some of our listeners might want to be your coaching clients. They might be curious. Okay, Coach Lori is probably a good example of her routine. I'm curious to follow it. What are those non-negotiables for your own health and balances that you typically do?
So I have a lot. I have, I probably have more structure than most people could do. But that's me. That works for me. Like I said, everybody's unique, and that's what I love about working with people. Is what works for me isn't going to work for everybody. So Monday through Friday, I have a regular 9 to 5 job. But so my routine is pretty consistent Monday through Friday. I get up at the same time. I prepare, or I have coffee, then I pack my lunch, my breakfast and my lunch, and then I have the same breakfast. It sounds boring, but I have the same breakfast every day, Monday through Friday. On the weekends, it's a little different. I can kind of cook outside the box, but it's yogurt, it's granola that I make homemade, so I can manage the sugars, and I add fruit. The fruit I can change up, but that consistency for me really starts my day off for me to be successful, and that's important to me. Like if I don't do that, I can feel that I'm off right away. And then again, my lunches are usually pretty much the same. It's a protein, a fiber, and a fat usually. And then I belong to a local community center, and they offer exercise classes. So on Tuesdays and Fridays, I take a strength and cardio class. And on Sundays, my husband and I go to the gym together. So those are my 3 training days a week. I also walk every day. That's like a non-negotiable for me. So we have dogs, and they love to walk, and I love that they remind us to walk. But it's our evening routine, and every evening, even when it's cold, even when it's rainy, we go for a walk. My sleep routine is also very consistent.
Keep it coming, Coach. We have a lot of time here.
I mean, I love my sleep. It's something that I cherish. I don't struggle with sleep, and I know so many people do, and it really impacts your day. So I'm really grateful that I have good sleep, but I'm in bed early, like 9 o'clock. My friends know, it's after 9 o'clock. I can't call Lori. If they have something going on, they cannot call me because I am not answering the phone. It is on do not disturb, and I am getting my sleep. And I do sleep for about 8 hours. So I usually get up between 5:30 and 6 every morning. Even on the weekends, I try to keep that schedule consistent. Sometimes I can stay up a little later, but once you establish that routine, you're tired. It's 9 o'clock and your body is telling you it's ready for bed. So even on the weekends, I don't really stay up too much later. So nothing exciting, all good things.
I have some follow-ups. You got me some, if you don't mind. When it comes to food, do you have any cheat meals?
Smart food popcorn. That smart food popcorn. When you're traveling and you stop at the local gas station, and everybody goes in there and comes out with a bunch of processed food. Mine is always smart food.
Okay.
And maybe a peppermint patty. I mean, other than that, there's nothing that I really crave.
Any guilty pleasure in food aside from that you typically would say, okay, this is not the healthiest, but once in a while.
So
because I'm like very open about my guilty pleasure. I'm sure if you listen to the podcast, you've probably heard my guilty pleasure, especially my current ice cream indulgence. That's one of
it's gelato. Is it gelato?
yes, yeah.
Yes.
Specific brand lately.
I mean, I'm not like a crazy ice cream or gelato fan. I do like it a few times when it's really hot. But I never used to like a sweet treat after dinner, but I find as I'm aging, I do like a little something sweet after dinner.
Okay.
I mean, and it could be anything, but usually like pound cake or usually something cake like.
That you typically make, I'm sure.
Yeah, I do. I do try to. I have a recipe I'm trying tomorrow. It's an almond raspberry tart. That's what I'm trying tomorrow.
You're gonna have to visit Coach Lori.
I love cooking. I love cooking and baking.
Yes, it is.
Ray, I think Ray has a question.
Ray have a question.
I have a lot of questions, but this is kind of talking about food. I think you should share your homemade granola with community. That's yes. I'm sure it's really simple, but so much easier just to buy ready-made granola.
So good. And like I said, I do it because I can control the sugars. The store-bought stuff it's usually too high in sugars, and it's not the right kind of sugars. I use maple syrup. That's what I use to sweeten my maple syrup. The real maple syrup, not the made in a factory kind.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to make Lori's homemade granola. My question is, it sounds like you've really optimized your own routine and schedule. It's really inspiring, actually. I think what you have catered for yourself, that's a goal that we want for our members to achieve in some way. You've kind of you know all of your pillars and how to manage them, but I think it's really a goal for the members to achieve. My question is, because we're talking about food, you said you eat the same meal for breakfast and for lunch, and for a lot of people that seems boring, or that they want to try different things. But we've talked about previously that it takes out that decision fatigue for someone to just have the same meal. So how did you get to that point to decide, okay, I'm just going to try the same thing every day and this works for me?
So it's all been trial and error. I mean, it hasn't, like I said, it hasn't always been this dialed in. And, I'm a mom, but my kids are all grown and they're young adults. So I definitely have more time to focus on myself. And so that's what I've been doing. So it's really just been trial and error. Has been, what works for me, what works for my body. And I couldn't agree more about the decision fatigue, because I still cook dinner a few nights a week. My husband does cook dinner twice during the week. And some of those nights I'm like, what should I make? And, my husband or my kids will say, it doesn't matter. And I'm like, that's not helpful. What's helpful is if you say, this is exactly what I want you to make, because I could do that. So the decision fatigue is real. And I think especially for, working families, or, anybody really, that decision on what to cook every day for the rest of your life is overwhelming. So yes. So, what to make. I don't have to think about that. I don't have to think about and I do a lot of food prep on Sundays. Sundays is like my day that, I get up, I go to the gym. My husband and I go to the grocery store. We've planned what some of our meals are going to, not all of our meals, but some of our meals are going to be for the week. And I do probably half of my prepping for the week on Sunday. So it makes the rest of my week much easier. But like I said, it really has been trial and error. And I've really focused in on what has worked for me and what hasn't worked for me. And I just keep doing on repeat what works.
The food piece is one of the most important variable that is very important to manage as we're aging, because that involves metabolism, sugar regulation, inflammation. There's so many things that involves it, and if you can control it and if you can manage as much as you can, it is going to be beneficial for you. And I love a lot of the things that you shared here, Coach. I have a couple more curiosity. Your sleeping habit, because this is something that a lot of people struggle with, especially in today's world where people are distracted, busy, people scrolling. You mentioned you have a very consistent sleeping pattern, which what we typically would recommend too. Is having a wake up time that's consistent. Uh, can you elaborate a little bit more about sleeping habit, possibly before you sleep, and then maybe after you wake up? What does that look like?
So I think for most people, it's the same thing. Get off your phones, get off the TV. I don't really watch a whole lot of TV. Surprise, surprise. But I will be on my, I will be on my phone. So getting rid of my phone. I do a half an hour before I go to sleep. I think they suggest. I think the people at base suggest longer, but if a half an hour works for me. I don't. When I lay in bed, I fall asleep. I know it's not easy for some people. It takes them a long time to fall asleep. But a half an hour off all screens. I mean, I don't eat after dinner. So I find that also impacts me. I think if you snack in between dinner and bedtime, sometimes that can keep you up. At least for me, so some people can't go to sleep hungry, and they have to have a little snack before they go to bed. So again, it's just figuring out what works for you. So I eat dinner, and that's it. I cut off my food intake after dinner, and then I feel like that helps me sleep all through the night. I don't get up in the middle of the night very often. Every once in a while I will, but and then I wake up. I do have an alarm. I do wake up to an alarm. And then once I get up, I don't get on my phone right away. I do, the coffee is already prepared for me. So I will sit and drink a cup of coffee usually before I will get on my phone. But then, I'm on my phone, I'm checking email, I'm checking my sleep score from the night before because I track it.
How do you track your sleep?
I have a Fitbit.
Okay.
So my Fitbit tracks your sleep, your steps, your heart rate. So that's the data that I get. And I love the wearables.
Yeah.
I love all of this new technology that we get that gives us real-time information. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, we're a huge fan too. We if we can recommend something, is the same thing. Wear something that tracks that, because you could again modify something if you know how efficient you are, how good your sleep is, and everything. Do you sleep with a colder temperature or warm temperature?
Oh yes. Cool room temperature. I have blackout curtains, so the room is very dark. I think that's it.
Very efficient.
White noise or ocean waves. I do have I listen to something on Spotify that usually is just, it's not the whole night, but it's usually maybe the first 2 hours of something calming, and then it stops. That helps.
I love it.
But it's work. It's work. Like everything else, it takes work. You have to focus on it, and you think sleep would come natural, but no, it doesn't. It takes work and tracking.
Yeah. I have one more follow-up on this, and I have so much curiosity when it comes to routines on this. Your exercise and movement. You've mentioned you do walks, you have a good exercise routine. Do you typically count your steps throughout the day, or do you try to achieve that 10,000 steps? What do you typically do?
I think you could probably answer this question. Yes, I do. I track it, and I do try to reach my 10,000. I think a lot of people have insurance motivators now. So my, the health insurance that I have does pay you if you get 10,000 steps. I think it's 12 days a month. So I do make sure I get at least 12 days a month, because then I get my money, which basically pays for my gym membership. But I do try to get 10,000 steps a day. I do.
I may need to switch insurance company. Which insurance do you have?
I think a lot of them do stuff like that now, little motivators to keep you moving.
Ours only, mine covers non-smoking. They
Well,
don't.
that's good. That's a start.
If you don't smoke, they don't penalize you. If you smoke, they penalize you.
Oh yeah, I know some of those too.
Ah. Oh my, this is so fun. And then last one. I promise this is my last question. You got me very curious, and this is because health is very important, especially for our listeners here. Do you drink? Do you still drink alcohol? Do you have any of? Do you still have that in your lifestyle, or no? Or you eliminate alcohol at all?
I mean, I definitely have started limiting it. As a woman who has gone through perimenopause and menopause, I think you'll hear the same thing from a lot of women, that our bodies just don't tolerate alcohol like we used to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have limited it. I mean, I don't drink on a weekly basis. I would say on a monthly basis, maybe there's a 1 or 2 nights that I go out for dinner with friends or my family, and I'll have 1 or 2 drinks. But that's about it.
The most which is very when you think about as we age, I mean, alcohol in itself is just neurotoxic completely, as we know, and but as here at PrimeSpan, I always say just moderation as much as you can, because we don't want to take away the fun in life for other people. Drink of choice, wine, anything?
Oh, wine, white wine or red wine. More red wine in the cooler months and white wine in the warmer months. But once you start tracking certain things, you can't unsee it.
Yes.
And when I've done dry January or sober October, where you don't drink for 30 days, and then just 1 glass of wine and my recovery decreases, my sleep score drops by, I mean, sometimes it's as much as 20 points. And so for me, somebody that is health and wellness is important to me. It's really hard to justify continuing that behavior when it's so negative on my body.
It's so true. I'm the same. I have a hard time digesting alcohol on a regular basis, except tequila.
I have a friend like that. That's the only alcohol she drinks is tequila.
Correct. So, tequila I digest differently. So I had a beer. I was somewhere this past week, and I had a little bit of alcohol, and it really affects my sleep. And to your point, sleeping just it wrecks my sleep. My sleep tracker tells me, you're under the weather this morning, maybe you should take some rest. And I'm like, no, I just drank alcohol the night before. And I had beer, which I typically don't drink beer. So Ray, do you have any questions so far before?
I'm just listening to everything Lori is saying, and it's really, really inspiring me to get into, a little more disciplined routine for myself and have breakfast. I'm trying to like yogurt because I know it has a lot of protein and it's really good for you. And it's really just simple to eat. So I will look forward to this granola recipe that she's gonna share. But I'm curious about, so your routine's pretty strict. Have you inspired any of your other friends or family, kind of like with your lifestyle that you have? Have you inspired other people to kind of adjust like one part of their life or have they optimized their sleep routine or their exercise or things like that just because you do it so well?
So I do have some friends and family that come to me and ask questions, about things. And I do have some, friends and family coworkers that I think I have inspired. One of the things that I did at work, I think ever since COVID, I think in the workplace, it's been hard to come together as a team, so a lot of people are still working remote or whatever. And I think our workplace has just really been under fire since COVID, and a lot of people are stressed out. So I was thinking, what can I do where I work that can bring some joy and happiness and to the workplace? And so I started a cooking club, and so we meet periodically, but it's like a potluck. But the goal is to cook, not to go out to the store and buy something, but to make something homemade. Sometimes we structure it around your culture. So bring something in that is important to your culture. And then we have a conversation about that. So we get to learn about people. So it's really gathering around food. You could tell I'm a foodie. I love food. So during one of these luncheons, I was talking about vegetables and how one of my own health journeys, I've been trying to increase my fiber intake. So we were talking about vegetables and how I tried to introduce more vegetables into my diet. So there were a lot of my coworkers that were like, we weren't really eating vegetables. And so now they're eating more vegetables. And I love stuff like that because it can really be that simple. One small change can really make a difference in your health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. You build a community too. What you just did, Coach. What do you think? What do you think people misunderstand about building healthy habits?
I think probably the biggest misunderstanding is that it's hard to do.
Mm.
I do think, I just talked about my schedule, and I think a lot of people would be overwhelmed by my schedule, but this has really been built over 30 and 40 years. I'm 51. So I've really been working on this my whole life. So it wasn't, Rome wasn't built in a day. We don't build things, in one day. It takes time. So, for me, I'll say to somebody, well, if they want to start walking, just start walking 5 minutes a day. And then after a month, add 5 minutes. And then after another month, add it. And before you know it, a year in, you're walking an hour a day. And you can look back on the beginning of that year and be like, look at how far I've come.
And for your own self, what helps you stay consistent over time? Because as I'm sure, as you mentioned, you didn't landed this structured routine the way it is now, and I'm sure there's a lot of trying moments and mindset. But I'm curious, what typically helps you stay consistent when think before you got here?
For me, it's how I feel every day when I wake up. So when I'm consistent, I feel good. I have energy. There's people out there that don't feel good every day. They wake up and they have pain or they have discomfort or they just don't feel good. So for me, that has been one of my biggest motivating factors is just to be able to feel good. And, I try to have a lot of gratitude in my day. And we're really grateful to be able to exercise, to have a body that can carry us, whether that's for 5 minutes or for 1 hour. So that's what really helps me stay consistent, is just feeling good.
A lot of the principles, a lot of the things that you are sharing is exactly what we're trying to preach here at PrimeSpan. We're trying to share here at PrimeSpan for those that are listening, and this is exactly what we're trying to do when you work with us here with coaches like Coach Lori. It's the structured support and the systems that you can build around your routine, and so then you can feel good, start to feel good. Coach, who do you feel most called to help right now? You are in the service helping industry. What kind of person listening should reach out to you? If you're for those that are listening, you're multifaceted. You have your um, therapist background, you have your coaching background, but I'm curious what kind of person listening should reach out to you.
I think for the person who's struggling with maintaining consistency or even knowing where to start, I think I can bring that knowledge and that empowerment. For me, it's really about empowering people. I really want them to have the knowledge, to have the information, and to start, just start. And it doesn't matter where you land. We can track and adjust. We can get you to where you want to be. So it's really that person that is really struggling, doing it on their own, and really needs that extra support. I talked a little bit earlier about perimenopause and menopause. That was a hard time for me. I was kind of off my schedule. I did put on some weight, and so this is one of the other reasons why I've kind of been focusing on my health and my wellness. So I know what it's like to kind of be lost and, try to figure out where you're going wrong and not understanding your body. I think there's so many people out there that don't have a positive relationship with their body. So if I could bring that positivity back to them, and I had reached out to a health and wellness coach when I was going through that time, and there were some things that she brought to my attention that I had never thought of before, and really got me to where I needed to be. So I know that coaches can help and can keep you on track and to give you that motivation, that extra support to get you to where you want to be.
We always want to ask, every episode when we're having a topic, we always try to provide our listeners a small step, a wisdom that they can take, something simple that they can implement. If there's one small habit that someone can start this week, what do you think that would be? Something that they can start.
So I think a lot of times I get asked, what's the best exercise that I could do? Is it running? Is it biking? My answer is whatever exercise you're going to do, that's what you do. So it doesn't matter what it is, and you just start. So it could be dancing, it could be hiking, it could be rowing, it could be walking. So find what it is that you enjoy doing and just start.
Mm-hmm. Coach Lori, I like. I am noticing a pattern. A lot of the Ray mentioned earlier about she noticed the groundedness, but I also noticed that one of the pattern that I noticed is that you want to always find to meet the person where they are, because that's what I noticed on a lot of your answers today, which is
it's so important. They have to be the driver of their own plan, or it's not going to work. Somebody can look at you and say, oh, you should be doing X, Y, and Z. But if that's not their plan, and, it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they have to be the driver.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, they're the expert of themselves.
Mm-hmm. Which is probably one of the most underlooked portion of the coaching industry, because a lot of the time it's about prescribing what the coach typically want for the person to do, and they forget that it's not about what the coach wants to do. You have to find where the person is first, and bring them to a level where they are comfortable, and find them where they are first, rather than thinking, here's what I want you to do. And
And
that's
everybody brings their own skills and strengths to the table. Every single person. They have these lived experiences that they've gone through loss or grief and what got them through that. They have it in them. And I think it's the coach's responsibility to bring them out.
Mhm, mhm. Very well said. Ray, I'm curious if you can share with it. It's really, time flies when we're having fun. And Ray, I'm curious if you can share, or I'd like you to ask. I'd like to ask a favor if you can share to our audience, listeners, what's going on within the PrimeSpan world. If how can they find PrimeSpan, and what are the things that we're actually doing today?
Thank you, Adam. So, if you want to stay in touch with us at PrimeSpan, one simple way is to join our Facebook group. There, you can connect with our community that we have there, and get in touch with other people who are on the same journey. You can also follow us on all of our social media platforms at primespan.life. There, you can also see Coach Lori and some of the content she's been making. But I think if you're looking to take the next step with PrimeSpan, it would be to book a session with Coach Lori, book our PrimeSpan build coaching, and take those next steps to be guided and be supported in those small, consistent daily habits to improve your lifestyle. And I think if anything that Lori said resonated with you, it's we should just take the opportunity and start, just like she said. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Coach Lori, I'm sure our audience that are listening here would probably want to connect with you one way or the other. If someone is listening who feels like they really resonated with you, how can they connect with you? How can they find you? How can they book a session? And what are the best ways to work with you?
So they can find me on PrimeSpan. There's information there on how to get coaching from me. I'm on socials. I have one of my Instagram and Facebook pages is the Fresh RX. And it's something that I started before my time with PrimeSpan, and that's where I try to put out some content about health and wellness, so they can follow me on the Fresh RX, and that's on Instagram and Facebook.
Before we close, any thoughts? Any last advice to our listeners on today's podcast?
To just start.
Coach, this was a pleasure having you on today's episode. Hopefully, we can have a lot more. There's a lot more topics to cover. There's a huge conversations. We can have you on board, and looking forward for more conversations in future episodes here. And to our listeners, we have exciting episodes coming up. Until next time, hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.
Take that with you. We release new episodes weekly. Follow the PrimeSpan Podcast on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss what's next. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep living well.